morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We have perspectives this morning. We certainly have personalities. We'll just make a brief reference to politicians now that the city election is over. And before the kudos, Chris, you might remember, we always try to start Viewpoint with a kudo or two, somebody or some organization in the community and so forth. We're going to give a big raspberry to the voters who failed to turn out yesterday. Incredible. People complain about what the heck's going on, and they won't get out and vote. So congratulations to the two candidates in Ward 3 who worked very hard. Mr. Todd Mueller, oh dear. Anyway, Todd is now going to be our continuing alderman. And in that vernacular, I want to just make a comment about our public servants. Mrs. Rolfe's husband, Gene Rolfe, serves on the county board. And he recently wrote an op-ed article on his view about the windmill factors over there and the potential of having windmills and so forth. And his views are not particularly pertinent to my comments. The reason I'm making the comments are that it showed that he studied the issue in depth before he made his decision. And that would be my kudo for this morning. A public servant, rather than taking an off-the-shoulder, off-the-cuff opinion from somebody else, went to the trouble to do a considerable amount of investigating, and that's how he made up his mind how to vote on that windmill issue. So kudos to Gene Ross. Now, we have with us our guest this morning, and he brought his number one assistant here, Director of Marketing, Christine Thomas, the wife of Sir William Thomas, a baker of note, by the way. Oh, I guess Mrs. Thomas is a pretty good baker, too. And we have brought the boss, Dr. Don Green, president of Lincoln Christian University. We appreciate, Don, your taking your time to come out and visit with us about Christian University. As you know, I like to blow a little smoke for Lincoln College since I've been closely associated with it many years. And it's important to remember that on the east side of town, we have another very important educational institution, and is like Lincoln College, a huge economic impact in our community. So, number one, welcome to the presidency, sir. You're kind of a local boy that went through the ranks, didn't you, sir?
Well, thank you, Bill. It's nice to be with you this morning. And I've been around Lincoln for quite a long time. I came to Lincoln as a student in 1967, so 47 years ago. I was a student here and then graduated from the college and seminary and came back to Lincoln in 1979. So we've been here since 1979 and on staff at the school since 1982.
Well, so, Judy Busby always likes to say you're almost a local.
I'm almost a local. That's exactly right.
So. If you're not born here, you're not a local. Well, you certainly are. You've taken over an institution that, like all institutions like yours, faces some real serious problems, and not the least of which is income and rising cost. You have a great board. They've shown a great deal of faith in appointing you as our president out there. You have a board of some long-standing fellows on that, and ladies perhaps on that board.
We do have. Our trustees play a vital role overseeing our university, and it was one of my commitments when I was asked to step into the presidency role. I said to the board chairman, now, if I do this, I want to be sure you're going to continue in your chairman's role because I don't want to go through a change of trustees. So we have an active board in that regard. So, yeah, in fact, that's one of the things that's kind of unique this year between both Lincoln College and Lincoln Christian University. We're both celebrating anniversaries. This is our 70th year, and Lincoln College is beginning its 150th year. Yeah. So that's quite an interesting.
I wonder if I may just quickly insert you, as we talked off air, Lincoln Bible Institute, the genesis of Lincoln Christian University, started in 1944. And you pointed out to me something that I had long forgotten, and that is that Lincoln Bible Institute used the physical facilities on the third floor of the University Hall at Lincoln College. So there are tons of people out there, both of our listeners included, that weren't aware of the two colleges' early connection.
Yeah, that's a bit of unique history as well. 1944, we had no faculty, we had no funds, we had no facilities.
A dream.
It was called Hargrove's Folly because Earl Hargrove, the founder, who was preaching at Lincoln Christian Church, wanted to start a school in Lincoln, Illinois, and we had 15 students that enrolled in that first year, and the first classes took place in University Hall on the Lincoln College campus. So
that's a remarkable connection there. As you took the presidency, Dr. Green, what did you envision to be your many challenges, but perhaps the most challenging factor that you had to address more immediately?
Well, I was asked to step in first as the transitional president, so I had an opportunity to work for 3 months very closely with President Keith Ray, who had been at our school for 16 years. During that 3-month time, we worked through some transitional things. I stepped into the transitional presidency June 1, and initially my goal was to try to stabilize our university, both economically and with enrollments, anticipating I would hand off my leadership role in the school within a year or so to an incoming president, and that transitional title was dropped, and I was just asked to continue as the president. So I have preferred to term what some would call problems challenges. I think higher education in general has some significant challenges, and Lincoln Christian University is no exception. In fact, I had a conversation not long ago with John Blackburn, the president of Lincoln College, and they're no exception either. We're facing the challenges of rising costs of education and enrollment challenges, and that would certainly be at the top of what we were facing at Lincoln Christian University when I stepped into this role about 6 or 8 months ago.
Would fall under the title of Mrs. Thomas's title, Director of Marketing. That's a very vital job in any organization, but in an educational institute, we're small potatoes as size. Lincoln College, Lincoln Christian University, we're kind of small potatoes generationally, but we've got to generate income. And of course, students are the driving force for any of it. But beyond that, we have to get out and find people who want to buy into the cause and want to help out. And somebody like Chris in your job, find somebody, old codger like me, that maybe have half a dollar or two and not leave to the university. That's a challenging job, Chris. And are there any unusual things that have come up as you've worked as a director of marketing?
In marketing, I don't think anything is unusual.
It's an everyday challenge.
It's an everyday challenge, and no idea is a new idea. It's just reworked, reapplied. But certainly this year we're doing a lot more to reconnect with our church partners who have for 70 years helped us to fulfill our mission. And so it's a very satisfying partnership, and our alumni magazine will be out in a couple weeks, and we're focusing on that.
But you spoke to an interesting, to me at least, an interesting background in that you have the support of a lot of churches, not just in this central Illinois here, but you have a pretty good cycle. And there are a lot, God love them, there are a lot of very philanthropic folks out there who find it the appropriate thing to do to remember Lincoln Christian University. And so you have a big job to find those folks and pique their interest.
Yeah, one of the things that Chris and the marketing department has done over the last several years is to really focus on the better branding of who we are as Lincoln Christian University when we went through the name change several years ago. The marketing department stepped up its efforts and I think has done a really good job of communicating more clearly what is unique about a Christian university education, and especially a school like ours that has that partnership with churches. Chris alluded to how dependent we are, not just upon tuition revenue, but the Lincoln Leaders Annual Fund is an effort every year to subsidize the cost of education and to supplement what students pay, and that's a significant part of our budget as well. So,
well, every day somebody has their hand out. That's just the way it works. And we all have to pick and choose. We have to take our particular favorites, hopefully plural, and remember them as we work with whatever philanthropy that we want to work with. The mission that you have is not just sending preachers out. Don, I want to talk about that a little bit, because you're much more than a school to teach guys how to go out, or ladies how to go out and preach.
Yeah.
So would you address that just a minute?
Really be happy to address it. At the heart of my work for years in the university was in development, and so I've had the experience of fundraising, and I learned over the years that people don't give to needy institutions, they give to institutions that meet needs. And that's a key factor that gets to the very core of our mission, because we exist to nurture and equip Christians with a biblical worldview so they can serve and lead in the church and in the world. And as you've said it very well, it's more than preparing preachers for churches and youth ministers or worship ministers, though that's still very much at the heart of what we're about from the very beginning. Earl Hargrove envisioned training thousands and thousands of other people who would use their gifts and abilities to further the work of the kingdom in the world. And Lincoln is trying to do that through education and pre-nursing and through psychology and counseling and business. Those are some of the other areas where we're equipping workers for the workplace and the world as well as for the church.
Yeah, it occurred to me, Don and Christine, that a lot of folks just kind of take it for granted. They know it's out there, and they think it's preacher school. And maybe initially that's what Earl Hargrove had in mind, but he certainly had a vision, which reminds me, his sermons were rather long once in a while. I can remember of our good friend Glenn Shelton. He said, if you want to come to hear me, you better pack a lunch. So, the student body is somewhat, well, very much more so than somewhat, quite varied. You have a number of foreign students. How many do you have on campus approximately?
We are a school of just over 1,000 students. I think our enrollment this year is 1,060 students, but it's not just students on our campus in Lincoln. That includes online students. It includes students at our Las Vegas site, students at our Bloomington Normal site, and students at our site in Indianapolis. So we're a multi-site school as well as an online school. And this year we have about 30 students from China that are a part of our China Institute. They're there for their first year, which is the English Language Academy. And then we've had a significant number of students stay on after they finish that year of English study to enter into one of our undergraduate or graduate programs. In addition to the students that we have from China, which live on our campus, through our online programs, we're actually reaching students all across the United States, Canada, Mexico, India, Japan, Ghana, Africa, taking classes at Lincoln Christian University out in the edge of Lincoln, Illinois.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned Las Vegas. Do you actually have a physical presence?
We do. We have a rented facility in Las Vegas where we have both undergraduate degree programs and just this year started our first master's program there. We started a Think of the irony of this. It's a Master of Arts in Marriage and Family Therapy in Las Vegas.
Use that in Las Vegas.
Actually, it's a huge need.
Las Vegas.
It's a huge need, and that's been one of our growth areas. The Las Vegas campus has been a growing part of our mission. So
get some broke gamblers and bring them in. The challenge is that in holding down cost, that's, from my affiliation with Lincoln College, I know it's a real day in and day out challenge. One of the things that you have to do is physically maintain, and you have a lot of work out there, a lot of property to maintain. So you have to have somebody out there who's in charge of that. We have a gym at Lincoln College that takes care of our physical programs, but that's a challenge.
It really is. We have a really fine staff at our university that cares for our facilities and provides excellent maintenance and ongoing care of everything that we have. So we really do appreciate the work that they do. I want to say a bit more about the cost of tuition, because that's one of the things that we just recently addressed. We saw the rising costs of undergraduate education. I recognized that it was meaning for our students more and more student debt. And so rather than freezing our undergraduate residential tuition in an effort to encourage more students to come to our campus, live on our campus, we did a significant tuition rate drop. We dropped our undergraduate residential tuition by about 20%.
I noted that in a publicity release, and I thought that was pretty remarkable. Swimming against a strong tide.
We are.
Stream, yeah. The food services, that's got to be a challenge, you know. I remember asking my grandson, Jerry, what he thought of the food at Lincoln College, and it's always very good. And he said, that's okay. Well, he got away and went over to Western, or Judy Busby's daughter, Western. And he found out our food was very good. Yeah. That is a challenge to feed these youngsters. You have a great staff out there, I'm sure.
We do. We just recently entered into a contract with Chartwell's as our food service provider, and they are doing really a quality job for us. But it's never like home-cooked meals. There's no way we can replace what Mom and Grandma do at the home-cooked dinners, but our food service does provide really quality meals, and they really have a concern for nutrition. So we're grateful for their emphasis upon providing options. So
I want to give Mr. Ash a chance to begin to do a little commercial work for our sponsors. But as he gets ready for that, I wanted to ask you about the job opportunities for graduates. We'll talk about that after Jim has our sponsors' announcements and so forth. Go right ahead, Gene. All right back to Studio Live. Our guest this morning is Dr. Don Green, Lincoln Christian University president, and the director of marketing for that great school, Christine Thomas, whose husband is a frequent guest with us up here. He does a great job in tourism for Logan County, plus being a busy guy running his own business. Don, we were talking about the possibility of, we talked earlier on that we just don't train preachers. What are the various job opportunities for our graduates at Lincoln Christian University?
Well, one of the things that we incorporate into our curriculum at the undergraduate level are required internships, so that students have an opportunity to gain experience either in a church setting or a business setting or in some other organizational context, so that that becomes somewhat of a feeder for job placement and job opportunity. But we have among our graduates those that are serving not merely in church-based ministries, but as doctors, as educators, those that are serving as community leaders, civic leaders, people in politics, people in government. So the job opportunities for those that come out of Lincoln Christian University are almost limitless. There really are possibilities.
Just in there. Lots of politicians, if not your school, another one.
We had a graduate a few years ago who was from New Mexico that was actually elected to the U.S. Congress and served a term in Congress, and that's one of the many ways that Lincoln graduates have distinguished themselves. So
you might mention the MA in organizational leadership for those employed in the business sector who are advancing their careers.
Yeah, one of the things I was asked to do about 6 years ago was to develop our first online degree program. I jokingly asked the dean at that time if what he was trying to do was somehow demonstrate that an old dog can learn a new trick. And he said, no, I just want to show our faculty that an old professor can learn new technology. Yeah. So I developed our first online program, which was a Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership. And
that was your baby.
That was the one I started. I developed that from scratch. And we've had every year somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 graduates from that program. They're serving at State Farm. Some of them are serving in national missions organizations. Some of them are in other countries, directors of organizations. So again, that's just another example of how we're trying to address the educational needs of adult learners and those that can't move to Lincoln, Illinois. But among those graduates, Sally Litterly was one who did our Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership, and that's a local graduate that I would mention.
Call Sally Litterly Turner the best county clerk in 102 counties.
There you go.
And her peers proved that by making her president of that association. By the way, I'd just like to make a personal aside, Don and Christine. When I was in the business world, we had need to hire a lot of part-time youngsters. And some of my best kids, men and ladies too, came off that campus as part-time employees for us. The best, maybe perhaps the best of whom was Leon Apple's daughter, Gail.
Oh, yes.
But that's a kind of a personal aside. Yeah. But seriously, your university furnishes a lot of part-time workers for our businesses in town.
They really do, and I'm grateful for our businesses that provide job opportunities for our students. We want them to be a part of the community. We want them to serve our community. So those businesses that provide them with part-time jobs are not only providing a good opportunity for them, but also that's a part of their learning. We want our students to learn by actually leading or serving in some capacity in the community. And so that's I'm glad to hear that we have students out there that are making an impact as employees.
And concomitantly, then that gives kids a little extra money too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
With regards to enrollments, do you have I know you have a screening process. Would you say that you accept most of those who apply for enrollment?
It would be a high percentage that we do accept, although, as we've already mentioned, a lot of our applicants already screen themselves. We are a unique kind of university in that we are a Christian university, and consequently our applicants, for the most part, are aware of what kind of school we are and what to expect, but we do have certain standards for admissions that we insist that our applicants comply with. But we would be an institution that would actually admit a high percentage of those that apply to us.
It occurs to me that the 3 or 4 of them are out there listening this morning might have a question or two at Lincoln Christian University. And if you do, folks, seriously, I'll be facetious about the numbers, of course. But 648-5510, if anybody has any question, Dr. Don Green, Lincoln Christian University is an integral part of this community. University, and who'd have thunk it?
That's right.
In 1944, I remember there was the usual comments of derision and so forth when Earl Hargrove started that, Jesus Tech and all those things like that, derogatory term. But look where it's come today, folks.
Yeah, in the 70 years, one of the statistics that I love to share is that we've had 16,000 alumni who have come through our school. Our alumni have settled in every state in the United States, and they have served in 167 different countries in the world.
Those are demographics that are very interesting.
That's impact.
It gives Christine a little marketing tool there with that, seriously, with that kind of a demographic background. I would say, Christine, there must be a real challenge in as I said earlier, everybody has a good cause, and we have to pick or choose. And it's got to be a difficult job for somebody in your position or any other school to work. They have to have more than alumni. We have to have friends of the institutions. The alumni can't pick up the whole entire burden. It just doesn't work that way. Any challenges that you find as you work in that department, Chris?
There's always a balance that we strive for in spending our marketing dollars in the local market to make sure that people know that Lincoln Christian University is here and has educational services for them, and then balancing that with trying to reach out beyond Central Illinois to other states, other countries. But we also have the advantage of some non-educational but more experiential opportunities in our Christmas in the Chapel production that brings in many people. Just this past weekend, we hosted the Elders and Church Leaders Conference, which brought hundreds of church leaders from across Illinois.
In spite of the weather.
In spite of the weather.
Yeah, in spite.
And in April, we have two additional large events. The Vine Conference, which is a weekend retreat for high school students and their leaders, and then the Christian Women's Conference on April 29th, where we're bringing in Ellie LaFaro and Michelle Pilar, and that'll bring in nearly 1,000 women from across the state and maybe a couple neighboring states as well.
Well, there again, those folks coming in, they're going to drop a dime here and there in the community. That's a major impact for our local businesses, And another thing that the college affords, just that gorgeous Hargrove Chapel, the community gets to use that, and that works very nicely for the community to have that.
Both the Hargrove Chapel and the Laughlin Center have become key facilities that our community does make use of. We'll be hosting the Ag Breakfast at the Laughlin Center early next month, and
there are several times for
we
those.
do make use of our facilities throughout the week and have a lot of community partners with that. So,
how many faculty members do you have on campus,
we have
Don?
40 faculty members that are full-time faculty. Total employees, just a little over 100. So.
And that covers not only religious background and religious training, but business associated.
Business administration, psychology, communications, pre-nursing, our general education program, as well as our biblical and theological studies and ministry studies. So.
You mentioned the foreign students a while ago, and I asked you the question off air if it has been easy for them to assimilate into the community while they're here studying, and it's a tough setting for them. I think we all have to recognize that. Is there anything that community can do to help these youngsters as they want to work further their career?
Well, that's a good question, and I appreciate the intent behind it. We do have opportunities for our students on campus to kind of have their own sense of community. There's a Chinese fellowship that meets on Saturday evenings. But we also want to place our students in host families so that they can spend the holidays and breaks with an American family and learn the traditions of our culture. And so we're always looking for those who would be willing to serve as host families for our international students that are with us.
Yeah, you take a kid and 18, 17, 19, remove them several thousand miles, not 100 miles, from their home setting, their environment, and so forth. That has to be a challenge.
It is. It's one of the reasons why I think we've seen interest in the China Institute. There are a lot of parents in China with Christian background, or at least have values and commitments that they are concerned about the quality of life as well as the education that they're going to receive. And so they're looking for a school very much like Lincoln where they could send their sons or daughters to a safe place, an environment where the values and the morals and the ethical teachings of Christianity would be upheld. So
yeah, we get pretty self-set in our own little environments, and we forget there are others who come from an entirely different backgrounds, entirely different mores and so forth, and to pick a teenager and pick them up and bring them over and set them into the cornfields of Illinois is a major challenge, I would imagine.
It really is. And yet, one of the things I have been saying to our campus community is just a reminder that Lincoln, Illinois is not in the middle of nowhere. We are in reality in the middle of everywhere.
Yes, we are.
We are within a 35, 40-minute drive of cities of over 100,000 in any direction. Within a 2.5-hour drive, you can be in St. Louis or Chicago or in Indianapolis in the midst of millions in urban settings. And for students who may be accustomed to that kind of large city environment, we're not that far away for them to experience the larger city. And yet there's something to be said for the smaller community and the environment that a campus community like ours can provide. So,
as you plan ahead, Dr. Green, what is your biggest challenge within the next 5 years, would you say?
Well, it's to address, as other schools are, the challenges of declining enrollments and the competition from community colleges. Parents are really savvy about how they're going to spend the money for education, so a school like Lincoln Christian University has to try to provide the kind of value and do it at a price that's most affordable and accessible, and that probably is our biggest challenge. It's one of our 4 strategic initiatives as a university that we've laid out in our plan is to make a Lincoln Christian University more accessible, to remove the barriers of cost and distance and language and other things that could impede the educational experience, and to make it an accessible opportunity for more people.
Well, that in itself is enough challenge, as if you didn't have any other donuts on your plate.
That's true.
You're constantly juggling. And an administrator in your position, Dr. John Blackburn at our Lincoln College, they just can't look into next week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's a very difficult to watch the bouncing ball.
Yeah.
Christine, when I was a kid, they used to have movies, and they would have, yes, I had Nickelodeons when I was a kid, seriously. They had the sing-alongs, watch the bouncing ball, folks.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, a president in your case has to watch a lot of bouncing balls and make sure that none of them drop on the floor with a thud.
That's absolutely right. I've sat close enough to the president's office as a vice president and administrator to know that probably the biggest challenge that the president faces is the multiple conflicting demands of multiple constituencies. You're trying to please students and parents and faculty and staff and alumni and donors and friends and churches, and it is that's a significant challenge. And to balance cost and quality is an ongoing challenge.
Like every institution in existence, every educational institution in existence, you have somebody home once in a while. Happily, that's not a big thing on your campus, but that's a difficult thing to do. You have a dean of students who has that tough job.
We do, yes. Yeah, it's not something that we do a lot, but occasionally we do have to exercise a measure of discipline, and we're always trying to balance in that case what's best for the individual and what's best for the rest of the community. And sometimes it requires that what we call tough love that is demanded of parents, and sometimes we have to take that role as an educational institution to be somewhat parental.
We talked about the faculty a minute ago, Dr. Green. Whence cometh your faculty members? Do you get a lot of inquiries about potential for jobs out there at Lincoln Christian?
We do. Our faculty typically have some connection with either our university or our fellowship of churches, although we do national searches for faculty, and right now we're doing a search for a faculty position, and in conversation just this week with the HR office, I was told we're getting more international inquiries, which is interesting as well. So we have faculty that come from having done doctoral work at many of the major universities in the Midwest and across the United States.
Now, Lincoln Christian University is a member of what conglomerate of schools? You are an accredited university, so in order to get that accreditation, you have to belong to some. What is your mother name?
We have multiple accreditations. We're accredited by the Higher Learning Commission, which is the regional accrediting association that would accredit Illinois State University and University of Illinois in Springfield and other regional colleges and universities. We're also accredited by the Association of Biblical Higher Education, which is an accrediting body for those that have a core of Bible classes or ministry courses, so we have that accreditation. And then our seminary is accredited by the Association of Theological Schools, which would be the accrediting body for seminaries in the United States and Canada. So we have multiple accrediting bodies that we're accountable to. And this is our year of accreditation self-study. We'll have an accreditation visit in the fall from the Higher Learning Commission, and then 2 visits a year from now in the spring of 2016. We'll have the other 2 accrediting associations on campus.
And it's important to make that cut because, you use the very word accreditation. Without that, it's difficult to get the student body that you need to have out there on that campus. Before I shut down the operation here this morning, Christine and Dr. Chris, I'll throw the ball to you for just a minute. Do you have anything you'd like to conclude with this morning as regards your particular job out there at Lincoln Christian University?
I don't know that I have anything to contribute about my job.
Challenge. It's a big challenge.
I came to LCU in 2009 when they made the name change or the organizational change to a university. And we've enjoyed some successes and some challenges in that time, but it's been a very satisfying adventure, and I have a lot of confidence in Dr. Green and the years that we have ahead of us.
Oh, I'm sure the good folks at LCU appreciate your efforts. Dr. Don Green, you're a busy guy. I appreciate your taking some time to come out and visit this morning. Do you have anything you'd like to just kind of wrap it up with?
Well, I simply want to say a word of appreciation to you for the opportunity to tell a bit of our story. This has kind of been one of our years of celebration. We're touting our accomplishments, and we really are grateful for the partnership we have with the Lincoln community, Lincoln, Logan County, as well as churches in this area. And I look forward to many years of service on behalf of Lincoln Christian University in the future.
Well, it is a great partnership with the entire, not just Lincoln, the entire Logan County and Central Illinois community. So we appreciate your presence. We thank you very much. I always try to come up with some sort of a comment that tries to close it up as regards the subject matter of the day. And I came up with this by C.S. Lewis.
Good.
And old C.S. said, education without values is as useful as it is seems rather to make man more a clever devil.
That's C.S. Lewis.
Thank you for Viewpoint. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.